Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching us on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like, share, and subscribe. Well, today is the beginning of a new week. It's also Inauguration Day. So I figured I'd bring on some very interesting guests to discuss something that just happened in New York City just a few days ago. So let's see what they have to say. All right, so here we are on the Sal Greco Show, and I have my friend here, Mighty Fuzz, and I want him to introduce himself, and he has someone else with him, and this is a story everybody should hear. So welcome to the Sal Greco Show, Mighty Fuzz. Let us know where you come from, who you are. I know you have a show too, who your friend is next to you. Explain the whole scenarios. I want you to explain this to the audience.
Sounds good, and thank you, Sal, for having us on. My name is Greg. I go by Mighty Fuzz Young. I'm a music producer, the real estate entrepreneur. And recently what was happening in New York City got me involved with the New York Freedom Movement, where I met the New York De Jure. And here sitting next to me is Andrea of the New York De Jure. She recently spoke in front of the state Supreme Court in the appellate division. And honestly, just watching her speak and really just be better than the bar attorneys was amazing. The footage is out. It's incredible. And I'll let Andrea get into the court case, but I had to bring her on. When you invited me, brother, I had to bring her on and let her speak about what took place this week.
I know. So here's the thing, because just to set the table, I've known Craig for quite a while. He's very big with the freedom movement. He's big. He's been at rallies. He's been in the city. He's been in Staten Island. He's also a good friend of ours, me, John, Eric, Marlon Bethel. So when he has told me about this case that he had, and, it's wild because there's no attorneys. So, to file motions, you have to know what you're doing. If you're not an attorney, how do you do it as a civilian? Well, he was part of this movement, as a freedom movement, and he actually had the case. There was a hearing the other day, like he said. I was watching it. So, Andrea it is, right?
Yep.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself before we get into all the festivities you had in court the other day.
Okay. My name is Andrea. I am a single mother of a special needs child. Fierce advocate, not just for children, but for the men and women of New York City. I've basically done the begging, the pleading, the lobbying, even helping potential candidates run for office that align with our points of view. Pretty much we've done all that. I've provided, assistance in cases to potentially get our rights back. So when nothing changed and it became the definition of insanity. So when we heard about the fact that there's a different way to do it, to be able to get our officials to become public servants again, to have everything restored the way it was supposed to be versus the democracy that everybody keeps pushing, right? It definitely intrigued me because I was like, this is something that could potentially be the way we need to go. And instead of what everybody else is doing, which to me at that point just seemed like the definition of insanity because they kept doing the same thing over and over and over and getting the same results, hoping at one point it would get different result. So I got involved with the New York De Jure from the minute it got formed. And
before you go further, what's the New York De Jure so people understand what that is?
The New York De Jure Assembly is a collective. It's not an organization. It's not a corporation. It's basically a collective of like-minded people, right? Okay. Of men and women. And what we do is we try to help and restore the actual de jure, which is the lawful version of our state. We're focusing on New York at this point because all power starts from the men and women. So if we do it from the ground up, but we also have the New York De Jure, which is statewide, which is from top down. So we have the County Committee of Safeties, which then work collectively in their own counties. And then we have the New York De Jure, which is if something that happens that crosses the borders of counties, then the state can intervene and assist us. Now, the best way I can describe it is like having an extremely powerful, educated warrior that stands behind you, helping you stand your ground. Because being yourself as a man or a woman is 1,000 times more powerful than being part of a class action or being part of an organization or being part of any political gathering, because you're basically going to get washed away in the crowd. But by being the man and woman you are, right, and having that power stand behind you to help you stand when you feel a little shaken or you're getting a little weak, and helping you move forward, that's where the power comes from.
I see. So it's almost like a buffer, since people don't know where to go, because, obviously I'm going to guess that you get no help from council, city council, your local Congress person, which probably in Staten Island, Nicole Maliotakis. None of these people, they ever reach out to you or ever answer you, correct?
No, they don't.
Okay.
But then again, I don't think we'd actually expect them to. So.
Yeah, I figured that. I know. I can see that already, since we're always at odds with their. They seem to want to get along with the mayor, and he has a 20% approval rating or less. But we could go into that a little later. But so, what exactly did you do the other day? Because I saw you again. I did see the clip. It's about 10 or 11 minutes, and you were basically, I saw you act like a lawyer, which is phenomenal. I'm guessing that you either were a researcher or you were it looks like you're a lawyer, but you worked in a lawyer's office, like a paralegal. So what happened there? How did you pull that off? And what happened? Like, how did this even come up? How were you able to even bring this case forward? Because judges, courts, they're very particular in how they approve or disapprove cases. So tell us that whole story.
This case has been us finding the 1109 or the summer inquiry in the city charter actually happened by accident. We were researching the duties of the county clerk, trying to get the notices that we served on Eric Adams and CC to all the enforcement agencies, trying to get it onto the record. So we were trying to get it filed under miscellaneous, and the clerks are like, well, we can't put this under miscellaneous. We don't know where we can put this on. You would have to get an index number. We're like, no, according to your duties, you're supposed to be able to file these for the public record, the same way that if I wanted to file a notice, or if I wanted to file a letter, or if I wanted to just file a standard affidavit without having to purchase an index number, right, for it to be filed. Like, this is not going on the court record, this is going on the public record. So we were trying to explain it to them, and the clerk was like not getting it, and we got to the point where it's like, this is ridiculous. So then after researching it, it's like a lot of the rights and responsibilities and duties of the county clerk and the city clerk have become intertwined. A lot of it got washed away. A lot of it is completely not even there anymore. So I'm like, okay, now we can't really get mad at them for not doing their job when they don't even know what their job is. And most of it has already been deleted and removed from what they were supposed to be able to do. So as I'm reading the city charter on the J train, being stuck in congestion. Yeah, train congestion. So, gotta love that. Train stuck. I'm running late. I'm reading the city charter. I stumble upon 1109. So, I'm still above ground. I give a call to Jeannie and the rest of them who are at the Supreme Court already, because they were like, all right, we're going to let the clerk know. We're going to put the clerk on notice for not taking our documents and put it on the public record. So I called her. I said, I think I found something. I think I found a remedy on here that we can pursue instead of, putting the clerk on notice when they really have no idea what's going on. So we sat down, we discussed it, we read over it, and we're like, okay, this, because we've already completed the administrative process. We already had we had all the notices served to Adam from the first moment that he messed up. The first EEO, the minute he signed it, enacted it, and then basically directed enforcement to do his dirty work, right? Because the mayor's not going to come to your house. That's what people fail to realize. The mayor himself is not going to come to your house and go, you need to show me your white card. He's not going to do that. He's going to be sitting pretty wherever he is, and then he's going to let, the three-letter agencies, NYPD, FDNY, DOB, DOH, everybody else, then Yeah,
Right.
go and enforce the directive. So what happens? They become the fall guys, right? I didn't do it. Of course you didn't. You had them do it. So people fail to realize that everybody's hacking man. You know, like Adams mandated this.
Yeah. May I add something to that, Sal? So the main thing was they weren't going after the mandate itself because the city workers technically work for the government. So he actually had the right to do the mandate with government workers. What we were attacking was the free men and women. So when you have a business, like a private business, and they send the DOH to make sure that people are wearing masks or using a Vax Pass to get in, that was unlawful. And that's what we were going after, and he didn't have the authority, and that's where he stepped out of his scope of authority.
I see. So for people out there that want to know, we're going to use this quotations. We're going to call this the injections, okay? So this was when they were mandating that everybody had to have an injection in order to go into a restaurant and eat, to go into a store and buy their medication, their food. This was during that crazy time a couple of years ago where the private citizen and their business had to oblige to these crazy rules and laws that are non-existent, were never written on the book. So that's why I wanted to give some background. So continue, Andrea.
So yeah, and that's how we put together our pleadings, and we made sure that the court knew that we were not challenging the policy. We're not challenging the fact that he can write an executive order. We're not challenging that he can't, that he can write it. Like the mayor, if he wanted to, could write tomorrow an emergency executive order saying, I hereby, write this emergency executive order that wearing purple every Thursday is going to save your life. He can write that. He has every right to write that. He can write it. He can bring it to life. He can't enforce it, right? He can't delegate and the enforcement of it to the men and women, right? If I want to wear gray on Thursday, I can't get a ticket for it. I can't get a fine for it. I can't be detained for it, right? For not following a directive that has absolutely no power over me, right? And that's where he basically stepped over the line. We researched the mayoral duties. We looked over, what his powers were. We once again went into the city charter. And that's the thing. People don't realize that you can't hold your officials accountable. You don't know if they're doing something wrong until you actually read what they're allowed to do, right? But it's a lot to ask the everyday man and woman who's working 2 jobs to put food on the table, a roof over their head, making sure the kids are getting what they need, the clothes, everything else. It's a 4,000-page document. It took me a while to go through it. We have a group of like 5 or 6 people that are constantly going through it. And they're, at any point in time, they decide to call up, the Charter Commission to try and enact revisions. And I'm like, oh, Lord, the last one they had was a joke. So it's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. It's a living document. That's the best way I can explain it. But luckily, it's also searchable. So we went and we read everything that the mayor is allowed to do. And the one thing he's not allowed to do under mayoral powers is to then enforce a directive, enforce anything as law, right? So if he's not allowed to enforce anything as law, he can't then direct anyone else to do it. You can't delegate an authority you don't have.
Correct.
Right.
That is true. That's be true in life in general. You can't delegate to others, especially this would go for anybody, a governor, a president. And I mean, you mentioning a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about Mayor Eric Adams in general and saying, when you're saying, where's he delegating it from? Is he calling this from a nightclub? Is he out hanging out somewhere? Recently now he went to not Mar-a-Lago, he's in West Palm Beach at the Trump International in West Palm Beach. Where this guy, I don't know where, this guy has quite the life, but I don't know, like you're mentioning other thing about how they enforce things and how they try to detain people. And the judge actually in New York State recently made a ruling on their sheriff, Anthony Miranda, and the New York State Police Department were running around illegally and unconstitutionally, running into cannabis stores, detaining people, taking their property, taking their money, and there's no warrant, no probable cause other than it's a random check. You're lucky to even write a guy a summons at this point. There is no court order. And now they magically can't find the property or the money they seized. So that's just giving you a little background on who we're talking about. I don't know if you know that, but there is already a standard set, and that's going. And they already said, the judge stated in the ruling, they violated your Fourth Amendment, just so you know. So
Yeah.
giving a little bit of pretext of what you're saying, this is people that you're dealing with in New York City, so continue.
And then, regarding the products that they took, did you know that Merrick Adams contracted with an incinerator company to then destroy everything that was seized by the sheriff's office?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He even did a live.
There's a video of
He
that.
even did a live for it. I'm like,
Wow.
oh Lord, and he's proud of it. He's proud of it. Like, why?
And that's this. See, so that's why I applaud what you're doing and what you're trying to do. You actually took something in the city charter, which, by the way, he violated on another. There's another matter when he's being represented by the city illegally in his sexual assault case. The one that he keeps trying to get dismissed and browbeats the victims. Him and his cronies, Timothy Pearson, John Schell, the chief of department now, disgracefully was promoted. We don't know why. So he's got 2 cases. There's a case upcoming with Lieutenant Epps. That's coming. That's another sexual harassment / assault case. Yet the city's always representing him in this case, even though it violates General Municipal Law 50K2 of the city charter. So you're already stating a lot of things that I could just give you a background. I've already noticed that he violates the city charter. He violates court orders. They legally already have illegally detained people. They've crushed evidence they shouldn't have even had. They've money's missing that they also seized. So this is the precedent we're setting. So Andrea is telling you something. You have every right to do what she's doing because the public servants and the people in charge, that's an elected official, are not doing right by the people that actually elected them. Just giving you this kind of background. So continue on what we were saying, Andrea, what you did the other day and how everything came about.
So we filed originally in New York County Supreme Court, right? We did our order of show cause, we did the petition. We literally attached every single notice that we sent to Eric Adams, as well as CC to the other enforcement agencies, including the Manhattan DA's office, right? And we put a disclaimer on the bottom of our notices cover page that basically lets the man or woman or person or organization that's receiving the carbon copy know what their duty is once they receive that, right? So we basically give them a heads up, like, hey, you're getting this carbon copy of this notice that we're sent to this man or woman or person or organization because of this, and under this code, it is your duty to do the following. And if you don't, this is what can happen, right? So there's like a little disclaimer on the cover page itself. And the Manhattan DA got a copy of every single notice that we sent to Adams, right? From the first notice of violation to the opportunity to cure, all the way to default with consent to judgment. So the administrative process was done. If we wanted to, we could have just straight went to the declaratory judgment stage, because here he consented to the judgment by not responding to it. And we could have, at that point, gone for the monetary. We didn't want the money. Granted, it's a nice amount, but we wanted accountability, right? We didn't want a tort case. We didn't want an Article 78, because we know how the government plays with that. You bring an Article 78, you challenge the policy. By the time it gets calendared, by the time you show up, they rescind it. It's now moot. Okay, now your case gets thrown out. 3 weeks later, you're right back to square one. There's another policy that basically does the similar thing with 1 or 2 words that are changed, just so you can't say they're doing the same thing. So right back again, and it's a constant cycle, right? They know how to play the game. We weren't playing the game, right? He overstepped his authority. He basically violated his oath of office. On top of that, the DA's office wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, regardless of the disclaimer. So we're like, okay. So we submitted it to the Supreme Court, right? We, even from the day from the time we submitted it, we were already running into issues. The clerks and everybody was like, we're not really sure how to handle this. I'm like, it's fine. It's a summary inquiry. So we filed it, right? We were waiting for the order of show cause to come back, whether it was signed, approved, or it was denied. It was approved, but nobody let us knew that it was approved whatsoever. So we went down there, we picked it up, and we had like 2 days to serve it. 2 days.
Jesus. It's a
and
little...
And if we wouldn't have gone down there in person, we would have defaulted. Yeah. We would have defaulted, and there was nothing we could have done.
They were trying to trap us off.
Yeah. So luckily, and we went back, we went to ex parte. We're like, we need an extension of time for service because we just got the signed order to show cause. The clerk literally looked at me and was like, well, then why are you wasting your time here? Go and serve them. Go to, City Hall and ask them where the mayor is. What? Yeah, go to City Hall, speak to somebody there, ask them where the mayor is right now so you can get him served in person. How likely would that be? Unless you literally have a copy of his calendar and track his movements, they're not going to disclose it. It's a security issue.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you where he is ahead of time, right? They're going to be like, well, serve it on Corporation Counsel, and they'll forward it to us. We're not allowed to tell you where he's going to be ahead of time, right? Especially 24 hours. We don't know what your intentions are.
Yeah.
Right there.
I think you have to serve Corporation Counsel, if I'm not mistaken. You can't give them. I don't know why they would tell you that. They just don't want you in front of their face. That's what it sounds like.
Exactly. So that's what we did. Luckily, we were able to serve Corporation Counsel, right? We served it for both Adams as well as for the Manhattan DA's office because we brought him into the summer inquiry because, once again, he decided to ignore the disclaimer. So that was that. Pretty much, they had about 2 months to reply to the original documents. That wasn't enough time. They put in an extension. The extension was granted, right? So yeah. So by the time we got to oral argument, it was pretty much 2023, right? January. So I was like, all right. So we did that. Then, once we did that, then we went to oral argument in Supreme Court. It was like watching the other side get coddled.
Yeah.
Like literally, like get coddled. Like the DA's office made procedural errors that the judge on the bench was then
On the record
in the transcript, right? It's also on the transcript, literally guiding him how to work around his mistake.
Leading them.
Like, oh, he didn't.
Jimmy Wagner, the lawyer Jimmy Wagner, witnessed it with his own eyes. He was in the courtroom.
So you're working against the rigged system here. That's what it sounds like. Everything's rigged all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, they were arguing things. We kept bringing back the original. We're not arguing, Article 78. We're not arguing a tort case. This is a summary inquiry, right? I don't know what's, the DA's office is like, well, we got prosecutorial immunity. We never asked you to prosecute. We asked you to investigate. So how does that, apply here, right? According to the cover sheet, your job was to investigate, right? And if you couldn't do it, according to the disclaimer, you are to forward it to someone who was willing to and could investigate, right? That's all he needed to do, right? The DA's office could have washed their hands if they would have been like, I don't want to deal with this. Send to someone who does. I don't care. I don't care who. Just forward it. And he would have complied. He would have been like, well, we couldn't investigate because there would have been a conflict. So we forwarded to X, Y, and Z. And if they drop the ball, that's on them. And it would have been fine, right? But it's like they just decided to ignore it, hoping it's going to go away, like everything else that they try with, right? So several months later, exactly, right? Several months later, the judge comes back, dismisses our case. Once again, there's procedural mistakes in how the case was dismissed. There was misinterpretations on the rules and policies that were used to initiate the case. Once again, they brought CAR up. They're like, oh, well, they didn't meet the standards for CAR. So because they didn't meet the standards of CAR, I'm not even going to use this time to then apply CAR. If we didn't meet the standards, right, why do you need to then let me know you didn't apply it? You could have just stopped right there, right? Just right there. There was no reason. But basically, they got more time. So once it was dismissed, we put in for the appeal ourselves, right? We spent hours, countless. Thank God they're not billable. If it was billable, some attorney out there would be like, I'm getting a yacht, right? With the amount of time we put into this, between researching case law, reading the cases that was cited by the respondents, reading, the information that the lower court used against us, right? Basically looking at other templates to see how we can put the appeal together, how to put the record together, make sure that we had everything the way that, because every appellate court works, they had like their own little spin on things. So we wanted to make sure that, we had it the way that they liked it, the way that they recommended it, the way that, we showed that we actually took time out and made sure that we followed your rules and your procedures and your recommendations. So it wasn't just a blanket, form that we did. And so it took us months and countless of hours and research and rules and regulations that we looked into, constitutional citations and laws that are still affirmed to this day. And then we looked in other case laws and things like that, because the original cases that we cited in our Supreme Court was thrown out because they're saying it was irrelevant, because the reason that the cases were initiated differentiate from why our case was initiated.
I see what they're trying to do there. I don't know if the audience could see that. I know, being a part of the system, I know the technicalities. So she's got to cut through all this, bureaucratic ribbon they throw in front of you to get to this point where she's at now. Because obviously she had to refile this, and from, I guess, January 2023 all the way to January 2025, that's 2 years worth of hurdles that you have to get through. So then how did you end up in front of the court just last week, just a few days ago? Because obviously you had to get through all these hurdles. They must have filed motions to dismiss just for you to get to this point, just to get to where you were at the other day.
Actually, that was surprising. They didn't file for a motion to dismiss. They did respond, basically bringing up similar arguments they did in the lower court, and then decided to throw in Jacobson versus Massachusetts in there, which was a completely new argument that had no bearing whatsoever in the initial lower court case. So I'm like, why are you even trying? But we still addressed it point by point in all of our documents. They asked for extensions. So it was getting extensions. And then I think we asked for one for one extension to reply, because between the time that they submitted their reply briefs to when we had to answer, the time was so...
Yeah, they ran the clock out. So we had a very small window to actually respond.
Yeah, they did what they did the first time, saying you only had 2 days to find and, serve everybody. That's the other...
This one was like a day, like literally a day, right?
No, we had a week to reply to two of their briefs, because they each served a reply brief.
It's nuts, bro. It's like...
we would have had like less than a week to reply. And it was like literally like lower court. It's like they're literally doing the 11th hour, BS again. And
crazy, right?
So
a lot of favors being called. It looks like there's a lot of leanings and favors being, because look, you have to understand the way this court, they clearly are favoring one side. I don't know if people could see that, because Andrea, what they're trying to do is they represent the people. You just wanted to be fair. They make it almost impossible for her to serve the paperwork. Then they want to dismiss it on a technicality. Then they make them, and then there's always extensions and all this other stuff. So before you know it, a year or two passes by. When the judge could really step in and say, we have a deadline, you have 30 days, I don't want to hear it. Corporation Counsel has tons of people working there. Why do you need 2 months to come up with one little line or whatever it is they're trying to come up with when they're trying to challenge motions and all this other stuff? So I want to make it clear for people, if they don't understand how this court system, that's, another thing I think needs a fine tuning, especially in all of America, with the way this, you got to cut through the ribbon here. 60 days, 30 days, 90 days. These could be done in a few weeks, especially with these corporation counsels that have like 30, 50, 60, 70, 80 people working for them. Sorry. So you could continue.
Now, I do have to say that our experience between the lower court and the Supreme Court of New York County versus the appellate court, there is a drastic difference, right? You can tell, who's sitting where. The appellate court is very rule following. They do follow the rules, the procedures. They know when it comes to pro se litigants or appellees, that, sometimes they need a little more guidance. Sometimes, they need to be, heard a little better. And so the clerks in those understand, the hurdles that we're facing, right? They don't give you direct answers. They don't give you law and, information. They don't step outside of their box, but they're like, this is your time frame. Here's the calendar. This is what you need. This is what happens, right? They basically give you a step-by-step roadmap as to what you would need to do versus the Supreme Court, which is, I think you can do this or this. I'm not really sure. Whatever happened. It's like very like flippant. Like you should know. Well, we've never dealt with anything like this, so good luck. Like, lovely. So there is a clear, difference, right? So what you saw the other day was me arguing in front of the appellate court, which was live streamed. The Supreme Court wasn't. They're very, secretive. So they don't want any witnesses. But the appellate court was live streamed. You saw me argue finally. And once again, you saw what we were facing against. You had old stand up basically try to argue once again that this was being, paraded around as if it was an Article 78, that we're challenging the policy. This whole thing is moot because of the fact that, he already rescinded it. According to Olds, Adams implemented this in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a minute there. I was like, huh? So
very sloppy. Victor Olds was very sloppy up there. It was
and
really,
he's the ADA.
Yeah.
And that worries me. That worries me. That's the representative that the DA's office chose to present their matter, and he's getting dates confused, right? Because last time I checked, Adams wasn't in office in 2020, right? Exactly. So I'm not sure how Adams was able to implement key to the city in 2020. That was one. And two, he's arguing that under, and then on top of that, he's like, well, according to the New York County law, Section 700, nowhere does it say that we have, that we're required to investigate. We are required to prosecute. And I'm like, that don't make, like...
Yeah. It's a rough one.
That doesn't make sense.
And the guy, I got to be honest, it sounds like this guy doesn't even know what he's citing. He's what happened is you hit him with something that's on the books, hasn't ever been challenged probably in quite a while, and no one's ever been prepared for this or has handled anything like this or doesn't want to do any what we call research or studying, especially if you work for the DA's office in regards to this. They kind of walked in thinking that, again, they're going to be slick and get out of this and coy and somehow get the judge to say, yeah, dismiss this. It's all whatever he's saying. But he clearly doesn't know what this procedure is. He doesn't know because he's talking about, I could tell. So he doesn't know how to handle this, which is, you've already done this now. It sounds like over 2 years in this court, in appellate and the Supreme Court. So you've been doing this for over 2 years, just in that section alone. Even longer than 2 years, and yet their answer is still to not treat you serious, not treat this serious, and think they could just slide on out if they use a couple of fancy little words. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I do respect the appellate court, though, because Olds did arrive late. He wasn't there for the calendar call. He didn't request any minutes to do an oral argument whatsoever, right? And the court basically called him out on it. Like, yeah, you weren't here for a calendar call.
The court. It's one thing. The court is separate than the defendants here who are represented. It was a corporation counsel. There
was a one for corporation counsel and one for the DA's office. Okay, so we were up against two.
One for Eric, one for
the mayor.
Alvin.
Yeah.
Those two right there don't know what they clearly just trying to almost like I don't know how to say this, like talk their way in a lawyer way, talk their way out of this one somehow, but it's not. They can't. They clearly can't. They don't know what they're even talking about or doing. So every time you're mentioning the part where they say we don't investigate, we prosecute, they're skipping. They say they didn't read everything. They're just trying to use big words in a word salad. Try to fool a judge into saying, "Oh, yeah, right, dismiss it," because we're using some kind of case law, but. Clearly, it's the same thing over and over again, because he did this in the the first time you brought this. So I see the pattern developing, if you know what I mean, with the corporation counsel.
I just want to know, how do you get to prosecute without investigating, right? like according to him, according to the section 7, what was it, 700, of New York County law, nowhere does it state that the DA's office has a requirement to investigate. I'm like, well, that may be true, but he took an oath of office, and that office applies to both federal and state and city, and according to federal law, he does have a requirement to investigate. And that's what I threw back in his face. So I said, regardless, according to the document he signed, he does have the requirement. He has the duty to investigate, especially if he's made aware of a crime, right? We didn't ask him to prosecute, right? That was we don't have that authority, regardless of who we want to see behind bars, right? We don't have that authority. What the men and women have the authority to do is go to these who have the power to enforce, right? And go, this is what we found. This is the evidence we have. It's not just a claim. It's not just a thought. It's not just us, thinking this is what it should be. Here's actual evidence of a crime. Do your job.
Right.
That's what the men and women have the authority to do. Now, the enforcement aspect of it, like the DA's office or NYPD or even Corporation Counsel, who, by the way, in the city charter also has, right, the duty to initiate, to investigate, as well as to, if need be, to basically forward the information to the prosecutors, right? So if you have that evidence, right, and then you present it to multiple areas of enforcement, right, one of them is supposed to do their job. One of them, at least one. And so far, New York has no enforcement. Because
if you think about it, bro, it's so foreign, this whole process of just people stepping into that power, right? So now we're asking for something that's not regular. They didn't know what a summer inquiry is. They didn't even know what to do with the summer inquiry. The administrative process. We're showing that they stepped out of their scope of authority, and they're like, "What do we do with that? What do we do? Let's kick it this way. Let's kick it that way." And it's, this is what the people need to do, brother. Me and you have spoken so many times, and it's. We see corruption, if anywhere in New York City, right? We see the corruption with the mayor. We see the corruption with law enforcement. I'm not following the stuff that's happening in the stores, but from what you're telling me, I'm sitting here thinking about that. I'm like, how could they be going into these stores with no warrant? Like, isn't there, the only way you would do that is if you think the judges are going to protect you. That's the only way you would do that. Oh,
well, apparently the way that they're picked is depending on how many people hang out in front of the store.
Oh, so what you're saying is they're going to case the store. They're going to say, I saw 2 people outside, 3 people outside, one walked in, one walked out, then 2 other people came. Oh, so we're going to go and raid this place. We have nothing else to go on other than there's some kind of foot traffic since it's a legit business. And then they come in and wreck the place, throw you in jail illegally, violate your Fourth Amendment rights, take all your property, take your money, and that's it. You're supposed to just walk away and act like, all right, I'm fine with this. I'm cool. Oh, did you have a warrant? No, there's no warrant. Miranda woke up with John Charlotte Kazdorj and said, tag, you're it. We're going to destroy your life next.
It pretty much, because the city council knows of this. City council knew this was going on, right? And they
oh, God,
because there's 3 that actually got shut down in Coney Island, right?
Yeah.
And that I
heard about that, yeah.
White Owl Mermaid, and they all got fined $25,000, and one of them got dismissed miraculously. So one of them got dismissed, but basically the criteria to have your store raided is how many people hang out in front of your store, what they do while they're hanging out in front of your store, right? So even though they made it legal to smoke, right, in public, even though they made it legal to have certain quantities with you in public, apparently if you gather in a group, right, that is what causes alarm. Wow. I'm not sure why. So if you have like 5 or 6 people hanging out on a bench that the city put on that sidewalk, right, having a smoke, right, you're now turn that store into a target.
Sal, how do you think that,
I don't agree with this. I don't agree.
Sal, how do you think they're going to get away with it though? Like when they present it in court, like if they try to fight back, the store owners fight back. I mean, this is clear as day. It's goes against their Fourth Amendment. What is going to be the case for the police and why they went in? How are they even going to fight it?
They don't even have a defense. They're going to always try to, because they're going to say they have a right to search your place and do some, what they call checks up on you, but you don't have the right to violate someone's Fourth Amendment rights. They're ripping the Constitution and saying, I can do what I want. I'm the New York City Police Department. I'm the New York City Sheriff, and that's what they were doing. And the sad part is here that the 5 plaintiffs in this, there were 5 stores. They had all their violations got dismissed on top of it, make it even worse. Everything they did, all the violations were thrown out of court. So, and then they came back. They came back and they did it again. And this is, you could see that they're targeting people. They're targeting people, and it's harassment, and it's beyond harassment. They're trying to put you in jail and give you a record, even though they can't do this. So they're going to put you through the system. They detain people. I mean, this is the world of Eric. And then he has the state of the city, and he's sitting there saying, we shut down all these stores. Oh, what a great job. And he's looking at Anthony Miranda. And then you know what the truth is there? That right now he's attacking the people that are legally trying to sell drugs and cannabis. And they're not even going after the real drug dealers because they're partying with them. So that's what's really happening in New York City in a nutshell.
Well, the regular drug dealers on the corner, there's no tax. It's cheaper, right? As long as you know your boy, you know the source. So the stores selling cannabis, that's for us, right? So that they can collect the taxes on it, that they can, micromanage it.
Correct.
That applies to us. That never applies to those that implement it. There always seem to be some reason, above the bar, right? It doesn't apply to them, right? And that's where the men and women need to draw the line. Like we need to be like, no, boy, you as a public servant work for the men and women, right? Work for the men and women. You are an employee. You're an employee. New York City is a corporation, and I know people are going to be freaking out about this, but if you look at Executive Law 292, the definition of an employee is, even under human rights law, is one who is elected, appointed, or hired by the state. So,
yeah.
And then you have them throw Executive Law 20 and 24 in our face. And according to Executive Law 20 and 24, it says that the chief executive officer has a right to enact an emergency executive order at any point in time if they feel that there's an imminent danger, right? So if the CEO has a right to enact an emergency executive order if there's an imminent danger, right? And then 24 basically says that and they actually had a court case in Kings County where the court broke it down. They basically said the mayor of New York City would be deemed as the CEO of New York City.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So that he's able to comply with Executive Order 20 and 24. Comply with Executive Law 20 and 24 in New York. So now you have a CEO, right? You now have employees, which are those who are deemed elected, appointed, right? Such as the DOE, appointed, DOH, appointed, right? 3-letter agencies, some are appointed.
Sheriff.
Yeah. Who's supposed to be elected, but then you have the city charter that changed it and now became appointed and is nothing more than a glorified tax collector.
Who's browbeating people into detainments and taking all their property, and has no recollection of where the money went. That's the other thing. Because he was raided himself by the Department of Investigation, and they found over $100,000 in his safe in his office, in the sheriff's office. And what did he say? You know what he said? I don't know what that is. And the ledger was allegedly ripped. There's a ledger where it said it was gone. There's pages missing out of the ledger. That is to be continued, by the way. People forgot that they also raided Anthony Miranda, who's run around and conducted himself like a thug with the New York City Police Department under the leadership of Kaz Daughtry, the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, and now Chief of Department John Schell, both involved in numerous sexual misconduct scandals, and one that's about to come out with Lieutenant Epps, who now is retired. I don't know if people know that. She is retired. They did not. Her suspension They did not come forward with command disciplines. They did not come forward with charges and specifications. Therefore, her retirement stands. So she's retired whether you like it or not. And boy, oh boy, I can't wait to see that lawsuit. How many people are going to be named in that and what was really going on? That's all I got to say about that one.
And just to round all this off, with the corruption happening, even with the congestion pricing, like this affects whether you have a red paradigm or a blue paradigm. New Yorkers have to finally just get fed up. And that's what we see with the De Jure. You know what? I have the pleasure to she's one of many women that work so hard at the De Jure. My wife too, Jeannie. There's so many. Joy. And they work tirelessly to try to save this city. And it's like, where are the men? You know, and that's why I appreciate you, Sal, so much, you know, because Sal, John, Eric, people are stepping up. You guys are shining a light on the corruption because we have a gang, like you say all the time, bro. We have a gang running this city. We have a lawless government, and it's only up to we, the people. We are the fourth arm of government, the checks and balances, the way the republic was founded. And we have to step up because if not, we're just giving them ground and letting them run amok. And it will just get worse as it's getting worse. They're running down. You just told me they're running down on stores without any warrants. I mean,
warrants.
Yeah.
But the sheriff retains his Fifth Amendment.
Right. But he gets it. It's funny how that works.
Yeah. Now, so the end result, what happened the other day when you testified? Is there going to be another hearing? How did that all go when you were up there with them? They obviously don't know the law, so.
Well, it's in the hands of the 5 justices of the appellate court. Hopefully, if all goes well, within about 30 days or so, we should get a determination of whether or not this case is going to be punted back to the lower court for it to continue. Now, if the appellate court decides to side with us and then punt it back to the lower court for the summary inquiry to continue, that's when the fun will start, because then we get to call Adams and we get to call, basically the DAs to call Bragg to the stand as witnesses, and then we get to question them. And it's on the record, right? We get to... Oh, yeah, definitely. We get to find out, like, where do you get the authority? Please show me where you get the authority to do, what you did, where you get the authority to delegate powers you don't have, right? But, somehow you made us believe you did.
I would love to know how did they randomly just pick stores to raid for cannabis? Like, oh, you're only 2 people outside. That's not. I'm telling you right now, if that's their excuse,
check the 311 logs though. If you really want, I think the way they're gonna try and cover it up is through. They're like, oh well, we got a few 311 complaints that came in under anonymous names. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of the times, they tend to, lean towards, well, we got a few, anonymous calls of complaints that came in from this location for the people being rowdy outside, for the people being too loud, for this, for that,
Insane.
So we don't know who puts in those 311 complaints, but I have a feeling there's going to be a few there. So this way so it basically backs up their initial, well, we're going to go take a look what's going on. And then they see those people out front and they go, well, we're going to take a look in the store, and they look in the store, and then they wait for like the 2 or 3 that are like outside to come in. And then all of a sudden it's,
Oh, this is fascinating stuff. I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see the next chapter here, because you seem to know a lot about this whole. No one wants to discuss these illegal raids they were doing. It's like it's out there, but nobody wants to. I want to hear about this stuff, and you know about it, and I want you to bring this forward.
Because I'm in Coney Island. I've seen the stores that got shut down. I've seen the stores with the fines right there that says, they were fined $20,000 and $25,000, right? And then I watched the news feed where Adams is boasting about, burning whatever they confiscated, and this is going to be part 1 of whatever. So, I'm thinking,
scary.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, just be honest. Just be honest. You wanted to create a hot box. And this is a legal way for you to do it without people shunting you. Just be honest with us. Because honestly, New Yorkers would accept that 1,000 times more than what you're doing. If the mayor would walk up and go, I'm gonna contract with this incinerator company, and we're going to create a hot box room in the back, and admissions is gonna be $10, right, to get in.
Sounds like something he would do.
People would pay that $10 a lot quicker than congestion pricing. There would be a line, a line out the like around the block, right? People, there would have to be a bouncer. Like, I'm serious. It would be more cost effective for that than what they're doing. And it would be voluntary. It'd be voluntary, right?
You know, and it's funny, you're from Coney Island and you're saying that that's where the Weed Shop Central is. See these awards behind me? Plenty of them came from the 60th precinct. That's Coney Island. I worked there for about 7.5 years. I know it very well. I know the area well. I know the neighborhood well. There's very much hardworking people that live there. They're hardworking. They live all over the neighborhood. They work all over the city. It's like almost like a blue collar, neighborhood. Half of it is Russians near the beach. The other half, there's a lot of African Americans live on West 33rd. Some of it is not. Some public housing, not everything's public housing, but they're all hardworking people, and all they want is the same thing. Now, the crime, I understand, it's always, with the beach will always come crime because during the summer months, it's crazy. I know. I've been there. I used to enforce a lot of different things.
Are you going to come for the casino?
The casino idea has been around for about 100+ years there, whether it could ever get approved or not. If the casino came there, they're going to have to clean up a lot of Coney Island. It's not just going to be one part. Because I know where they want to put it. It's in the middle between West 16th and then going out towards...
like right in front of the Wonder Wheel. It's like almost right in front of... like...
That, and it's always been a problem in Coney Island, that area, because they like to hang out there. There's nothing you could do. And they like to come from the other side of the neighborhood, like way down in the West 30s. There's little pockets of gangs. They like to come down. They want to take your bag. You leave it on the bench. So we used to have I don't know what they called it, like the bag operation. You would watch people with binoculars, and the first one of these guys that grabbed, but kind of like it's baiting them. So there was I know Coney Island, but in the end, there's a hardworking people there. And now you're telling me, first you got the sheriff running around with John Shell and his cronies at NYPD. And then that's also the area, if you remember, where someone had a juice spot that he had a nightclub on the weekends that he was basically, they were trying to extort him. And that was the former police commissioner, Eddie Caban, his twin brother, the other guy. It's like a whole ring. This guy, Ray Jenkins, that used to work for the Office of Nightlife, another crony of Eric Adams, who he terminated. One of the few people he actually terminated, all in Coney Island.
Was that the juice bar on Mermaid and between, I think, 20th and 19th?
I think so. It was a juice bar. It turned into a nightclub on the weekend, and all chaos would break. The police would send come out 311 jobs. It's funny. 311, you mentioned, they were getting a bunch of calls for this one location. One. I could tell you a bunch of other clubs I know in that area that you have to be careful walking in. There's probably a guy with a sword from the Russian clubs. But now this club, you want to send 30 people there and have all these phone calls. I find that bizarre. And they want to extort that guy in particular. Very disturbing stuff going on in Coney Island.
And now it's a councilman's office.
And now it's a councilman. And something, you mentioned this, I'm going to show you two things that just happened here because I have this up on the screen. Just came out over the weekend on Friday.
Consolafito.
That's your favorite nightclub. Here it is. NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Equity Inclusion, Wendy Garcia, is allegedly on her way out the door at the NYPD. Her office would be under federal investigation for mishandling investigations. Her office closed out of sexual harassment in the New York City Police Department. When you file sexual harassment claims in New York City Police Department as a police officer or any employee there, it would go through her office. Since we are now hearing about all these all kinds, pay for play, they're using overtime codes, a federal code for the real code. She would get these complaints of these women that would complain and say, look, this monster, Jeffrey Madry and his crew, they can't stop harassing me and touching me. And guess what? She would catch and kill it. That's her office. So Wendy Garcia, she not only left the police department now, she's in now the Department of Corrections. Instead of terminating her, Eric Adams is helping her move because apparently her brother-in-law is Udanis Rodriguez, the head of the DOT, the commissioner, former city councilman, and they've had their own problems. They've sued the New York City Police Department in the past. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on in New York City Police. I don't know if your take or you know who this woman is, but look at what's going on here. This is just in the police department alone.
I am not at the point, right? Like, I finally just come down from the whole, legal research and everything. So I haven't looked that far into the whole behind the scenes of NYPD. I'm more focused on the fact that we have things in Coney Island. Because right now I've been in Coney Island for about 3 years. Prior to that, I was in Bushwick. So I'm a very, big advocate when it comes to, where to draw a line when it comes to NYPD and the civilians for the most part. In Bushwick, I lived in a building that was rated, labeled hot, no problem. The way I looked at it was like, it's labeled hot. Y'all know, like, the people in there knew it, the reason it was labeled hot knew it, right? So when the building got raided, there should be no surprise, right? Nobody blinked an eye. We're all good, we knew what was going on. We closed out, we kept to ourselves. It's like, whatever, right? But when it gets to the point where if they catch somebody filming because they've already detained who they came for and is now continuing to them roughhouse, right, once they've already in handcuffs, and there's somebody recording it, and NYPD's response to that is to spray mace into the hallways. Yeah. So for me, it started there, right? Because I'm going to be honest. 5-foot white girl, didn't have much interaction with NYPD, right? A lot of people be like, well, it's white privilege. And I'm like, to a degree, yes. Another thing is I'm a freaking wallflower, right? I don't go out. I didn't never, for the longest time in my life, I didn't go out after dark, right? My source of entertainment was home with a book, right? I'm your typical wallflower. That's why I didn't have interactions with NYPD. The few times I did have interactions with NYPD, right? They turned the other way. I grew up in a generation where my mother could beat me, NYPD be in the room, and they turned the other way because that's not going to leave marks, and she deserved it, right? So that's how we grew up, right? If cops had to show up at your house because you did something stupid, your mother or your father had the right to whoop you, right? And the cops did not get involved whatsoever, and that's how I grew up, right? So they turned the other way. So there was really no reason for me to interact with them. Right, and plus we handled stuff on our own.
Well,
right?
Now, before you go, I'm going to show you. I want to show you something else too. This is another thing that occurred. It would affect Coney Island. According to NYPD sources, the majority of arrests made in New York City transit system by the NYPD is for, quote, numbers, end quote. The district attorney offices are declining all prosecutions of said arrests. This is perception management via controlling the narrative. Hashtag the Sal Greco Show. What's going on here is they have a problem, crime in transit. Their answer is lock up everyone they can for whatever it is. They're supposed to write a summons. Instead, they bring them in for an arrest. It shows up as an arrest. And then as they're doing this, everything they're doing is a declined prosecution. They're ordering the cops. This is from the very top, which is Eric Adams, all the way down. So all those arrests you're hearing about in transit are, as I like to say, a fugazi. They're just to generate numbers so that the message that goes out is we are keeping you safe by arresting people that don't even need to be arrested because it's just a summons. You understand? So that's the next scandal you're hearing about, and you heard it here first.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. And keep in mind that NYPD is getting the roadmap of how to do it so that they don't get into too much trouble from Corporation Counsel.
And I love the rank and file. That's what me, John, Eric, Marlon, Bethel, this is what we do. But the guys up top, they're super corrupt, man. And from what you're saying, it's even worse than I thought because they're trying to play games even through Corporation Counsel. Where can people find you, Craig and Andrea? Where can people find your stuff? If you have a website, tell my audience where they can find you.
Ladies first, guys. For gentlemen.
You can find us at NY De Jure .info, which is NYDEJURE.info. New York _ de jure. So you can find us there. And pretty much, we also have, once you go onto the website, you also have the regular counties that are already lawfully formed. If you live in the 5 boroughs, right? If you live in the 5 boroughs and you have a county that's already lawfully formed, please reach out to them, right? The more numbers, the better. We provide free information on how to stand your own ground, how to basically lawfully and legally keep yourself out of cuffs, right? During the times that we had all those rallies and everything, and the ones I attended, because I've been attending for I don't know how long, since 2020 for the most part, sometimes you need the information so that when the ones from the law department show up with 250 cops for 6 people.
I was one of them. Okay.
You too?
Yeah.
I was
one of them, man. He was one of them.
Yeah, I was never put into cuffs because I basically told the guy from the law department that if he decides to then move forward, I will have his pension and every single paycheck that he's ever made or wants to make, and he will never see, any of it. And I told him why. And I wasn't arrested, and the girl that was arrested miraculously was released, and they proceeded to apologize. So, we provide that information. We provide that education. We help empower the men and women of New York City, because at this point, they need to know how to defend themselves. And I don't just mean with your fists, and I don't mean just going to court, but to prevent it from getting to that point, right? To keep you from getting to that point. Where here in Coney Island, you can have NYPD roll up and just, stop you for whatever reason, and the fact that, you have the MTA, basically raid squad, as I call them. I'll be like, you guys look like you're going for a raid, because there's 20 of them huddled in front of the library, right, waiting for the bus to show up to get 3 people that didn't pay. And I'm like, they're like, well, it's a crime. I go, where is it a crime for you not to pay? They're like, well, it's, theft of service. I said, well, according to theft of service, it's refusal to pay the lawful fare. What's the lawful fare? They're like, well, it's $2.90. I said, no, it's not, because the last time I checked, before it even became $2.75, the comptroller on a state and city level both concluded that the for going from $2.50 to $2.75 was illegal and fraudulent. So what's our fare? How can you say we're it's a theft of service if you can't even tell me what the proper fare is supposed to be, right? For all I know, you're overcharging me. Which, in a way, they are, because unless there's
the technical sense.
Yeah, but the way I look at it is, for $2.90, there better be a masseuse on there, right?
What about you? Well, I'll tell you this: if anybody's in the 60th precinct, if you all watch this, it is my alma mater. Look out for Andrea. She's not against you. Her beef is actually with the anti-Mirandas of the world and Eric Adams, who are completely corrupt. And by the way, those cops should join you, since they're being abused by the very people up top, like Eric Adams and anti-Miranda.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Brother, I just want to first place out saying thank you that you reached out to me and allowing Andre to have this platform today. We really appreciate it. John and Eric did the same the other day, and we got to get the word out, right? These people are working behind the scenes tirelessly, and it's humbling, and they just want to save this city. It's not about fanfare or being saviors or heroes or anything like that. It's literally they want to reflect so other people get involved. So that's why I have so much respect for the New York De Jure. They've become family to me. You can reach me at Mighty Fuzz Podcast on IG, and my Twitter is at Mighty Fuzz Cast. So thanks again, bro, for having us. And I want to give you your flowers for everything that you're doing, your new show, just putting that light on this local government. So I just wanted to give you your flowers as well, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that Conza Frito will live in infamy as the Hall of Felons. The Hall of Felons that, anything and everything went there because, if you know the right people, you'll get away with stuff. It's just that now it's starting to catch up. And that's the point. That's what we do on this show. We do on John and Eric's show. What we're trying to do is shine a light, because, see, it's people like Andrea and Craig here that are actually going out there for you. Those taxpayers in New York City, all of local government should be on alert, because they work for you. Not the other way around. I know they like to act that way, but that's not the truth. And all these two and many others behind them are doing is trying to hold people accountable. And what's my main mantra all the time? We need more transparency and we need accountability. And that, my friends, with today, the inauguration of President Donald Trump, that's what will start to happen. And with that, I'm going to bid adieu. I hope everybody has a great day and a great evening, and I'll see you on the next one.